Hello, rounded Taurus. As August 17th unfolds, something may be asking you to look more closely at what you have been holding on to, not because you were wrong to value it, but because even something precious can become heavy when you keep carrying it after it has stopped growing with you. Your heart may be leaning toward one choice, while outside voices, responsibilities, old expectations, and other people's emotions create a kind of static around what you already know deep down. Some of that weight may belong to friends, work, family, or simply the standards you have placed on yourself. But it does not all have to become part of your love story. This is a moment to ask yourself what stability actually means to you. Is something steady because it continues to nourish you, or does it simply feel safe because you already know how to live with it? Taurus, you can be incredibly patient when something matters to you, but patience becomes painful when you are the only one tending the garden. A meaningful connection can take time to develop, yet time alone cannot create reciprocity. Both people have to bring honesty, care, and a willingness to meet each other somewhere in the middle. You may find yourself caught between wanting closeness and wanting enough space to hear your own thoughts again. One moment you may want to reach for someone, and the next you may feel the need to pull inward and breathe without carrying the emotional atmosphere of the entire relationship. There is nothing wrong with that conflict. What matters is that you do not bury it simply to preserve the appearance of peace, because ignoring what you feel does not make the tension disappear, it only allows it to settle deeper. If you've been giving more than you receive, consider stepping back from the role of keeping everything together. This is not about withholding affection, creating distance to make someone anxious, or trying to teach another person a lesson. It is about allowing each person to carry their own part of the connection so you can finally see what remains when you stop doing all the emotional work for both of you. Sometimes the clearest answer comes when you stop filling every silence and give the other person enough room to reveal whether they are willing to meet you without being carried there. For some Taurus souls, this may create a noticeable change in the dynamic. Someone who has been hesitant, emotionally unavailable, or slow to respond may begin to recognize that your constant presence cannot be taken for granted. But the important question is not whether they become afraid of losing you. The deeper question is whether they become willing to show up with greater honesty, consistency, and intention. A person can miss your presence and still not be ready for the kind of relationship you deserve. So let their actions tell you more than the intensity of a single emotional moment. What begins to shift here is unlikely to come from nowhere. It grows out of everything that has already been building beneath the surface. The conversations that never quite happened, the misunderstandings you tried to overlook, the doubts you carried quietly, and the moments when you wondered whether staying was still the same thing as believing. You may have asked yourself whether this connection is worth the effort, and the answer may still be yes, but only if the effort is shared. Something beautiful cannot keep growing in soil that only one person tends. This is where honesty becomes more important than reassurance. Vague promises, half-spoken intentions, and emotional escape routes cannot create the kind of security Taurus is actually seeking. You do not need to demand certainty from another person, but you can become clearer about what you require in order to feel respected and emotionally safe. Rather than trying to force someone onto the path you have already chosen, allow them to show you whether their path can genuinely meet yours. And this applies beyond love, too. You may be reaching a point where you recognize that certain habits, responsibilities, or expectations have become part of your life simply because they have been there for so long. Familiarity can feel remarkably convincing, Taurus. It can whisper that because you have invested so much time, energy, patience, or love into something, you must continue protecting it, even when some part of you already knows that it needs to change. Take your time, but do not confuse taking your time with abandoning your own truth. Your natural steadiness could be one of your greatest strengths when it gives you the patience to build something lasting, yet it can become a trap when fear disguises itself as loyalty. You are allowed to reconsider a decision without calling your past choices a mistake. You are allowed to change the way you define security, and you are allowed to make room for something healthier without destroying everything that came before it. There is also something important to remember about your ability to create order. You may naturally notice details that other people overlook. And when you care about an outcome, you often want to understand how every piece fits together before you move. That instinct can serve you well, especially in work and personal decisions. But there are moments when trying to control every variable only makes the path harder to see. Some things need careful planning, while others reveal themselves only after you loosen your grip enough to let them move. A meaningful opportunity may be taking shape around your abilities, particularly your patience, practical judgment, attention to detail, and capacity to stay with something long enough to develop it properly. Instead of rushing toward the first opening simply because it looks promising, give yourself permission to examine whether it actually supports the life you are trying to build. Write down what matters, refine your plan, and remember that reaching the right destination does not always require taking the most familiar route. A change in direction does not automatically mean you have lost your way. You may also notice that your standards can create discomfort for people who are accustomed to you accommodating them. That does not necessarily mean you are doing something wrong. There is a difference between expecting everything to happen exactly as you imagine and recognizing that certain boundaries are necessary for your well-being. You cannot decide how another person behaves, how quickly they grow, or what they are ready to understand, but you can decide what you continue to participate in and what you are no longer willing to carry. So let this be less about forcing life into the shape you think it should have, and more about tending the parts of your life that still have genuine life in them. Clear away what has become emotionally crowded. Make room where there has been too much pressure. Notice what leaves you feeling rooted and what leaves you constantly bracing yourself. As you do, you may begin to understand that stability is not the absence of change. Sometimes true stability comes from knowing that even when circumstances shift, you are no longer abandoning yourself to keep everything else intact. And when it comes to the person who has been difficult to reach, there remains the possibility of a sincere apology or a more honest acknowledgement of what has happened. But for that to mean something, it has to come from real self-awareness, rather than guilt, fear, or the discomfort of realizing that your patience has limits. You do not need a dramatic confession to prove that something has changed. Sometimes the most meaningful shift is simply seeing someone take responsibility without being asked, and recognizing that the emotional ground between you is beginning to feel different. Yes. Even if forgiveness begins to open like fresh green leaves after rain, Taurus, let your heart remain discerning. You can soften without immediately handing someone access to every tender part of you again, especially when that tenderness has already been tested. As August 17th unfolds, a quieter kind of romantic clarity begins to take shape, and a connection that once felt tangled may start revealing what is genuine beneath all the uncertainty. You are not being asked to force anything into place. You are being invited to notice whether the bond between you and this special person has enough honesty, consistency, and care to keep growing. The Eight of Wands brings movement into a situation that may have felt stalled, but for you, that movement does not have to mean rushing toward an answer. Conversations may become easier, something previously left unsaid may finally have room to surface, or a distance between two people may begin to soften through simple, honest communication. Whether that comes through a message, a phone call, or a meaningful encounter, the important thing is not how quickly something happens, but whether the movement carries genuine intention. Let events unfold without trying to control every step, because what is developing deserves enough space to show you what it actually is. The Ten of Cups brings the possibility of emotional fulfillment, harmony, and a relationship in which peace matters just as much as passion. For Taurus, this card speaks beautifully to the desire for something that feels safe enough to inhabit, not merely exciting enough to pursue. A lasting connection is built through shared effort, emotional reliability, and the quiet knowledge that both people are willing to meet each other halfway. It is not about finding perfection or holding on to an idealized version of love. It is about creating a relationship where happiness has room to become part of everyday life. That kind of harmony requires patience, especially when old fears or wounded pride are still present beneath the surface. Give emotions time to settle before deciding what they mean, and allow actions to tell you what words cannot always explain. The Ace of Cups then opens another layer of the story, representing emotional renewal, sincere affection, intuition, and the possibility of allowing your heart to become receptive again. Taurus, your strength in love is not that you can hold on to something forever. It is that when you recognize something as meaningful, you are capable of offering it care, presence, and genuine devotion. But this card also asks you to look inward. If you have protected yourself for so long that receiving love feels almost as unfamiliar as giving it, there may be a gentle invitation here to let some of that guardedness soften. You are allowed to want reciprocity, tenderness, and emotional consistency without feeling that you are asking for too much. The star carries that same thread of healing, reminding you that hope does not have to mean believing everything will magically fall into place. Sometimes, hope is simply the decision to trust your own judgment again after disappointment. For a relationship that has carried complications, uncertainty, differences in circumstance, or emotional distance, the star can symbolize a clearer horizon. It encourages you to remain connected to what feels authentic within you, while allowing the other person to reveal themselves through their own choices. You do not have to persuade, rescue, or carry the entire connection forward. As healing takes root, you may begin to understand that emotional security comes from knowing where you stand within yourself, even while another person is still figuring out where they stand with you. Then comes death, a card of profound transition and release. Its message does not need to be interpreted as a literal ending. Instead, it can represent the shedding of an old definition of safety that no longer allows you to grow. Perhaps you've been holding on to a relationship, expectation, habit, or version of yourself, because changing it would mean admitting that what once worked is no longer enough. Taurus, this is where your deeper lesson appears. Stability is valuable, but stability that leaves no room for growth can quietly become stagnation. True transformation may happen more gradually for you, through small realizations that eventually become impossible to ignore. You and another person may need to adjust to one another, reconsider expectations, and learn how to create something that does not depend on either person carrying everything alone. That same process can open space in both love and career, allowing you to release commitments that constantly drain you and invest your energy where it can actually take root. The goal is not to become someone entirely different, but to become more honest about what your life needs in order to feel both secure and alive. When it comes to your physical well-being, pay attention to where tension gathers, particularly around the neck and shoulders. If that resonates with what you have been experiencing, rather than treating this as a diagnosis, let it serve as a gentle reminder to notice how much you may have been carrying mentally and emotionally. Sometimes the body becomes the place where unspoken pressure settles, especially when you keep trying to maintain everything around you without giving yourself enough room to breathe. Slow down, notice what has been weighing on you, and allow yourself to release one layer at a time, instead of expecting yourself to feel completely different all at once. The same principle applies to thoughts that repeatedly pull you toward bitterness, sadness, or negativity. You do not have to fight every difficult feeling, but you also do not have to build a permanent home inside it. Give yourself permission to pause, breathe, and understand what is underneath the emotion before allowing it to determine your next decision. With that awareness, your relationship with discomfort can change, and you may begin to recognize which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones are simply old patterns asking to be released. In your work life, there may be an idea, skill, or contribution that deserves more recognition than it has been receiving. Whether you work for yourself or someone else, the important question is not simply who can help you move upward, but who has the authority and integrity to recognize the value of what you bring. Be thoughtful about where you place your ideas, because not everyone who works beside you will necessarily know how to honor your contribution. Protecting your work does not mean becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It means developing enough self-respect to understand the difference between collaboration and allowing someone else to take ownership of what you created. There may also be people or circumstances that make you question whether your goals are realistic, especially if you have spent a long time inside a routine that feels increasingly disconnected from who you are becoming. But your future does not have to be decided by someone else's opinion of your abilities. You still have a say in what you pursue. what you tolerate, and what kind of working life feels worthy of the energy you invest in it. If you're searching for a new direction, you may feel as though there are several possibilities, but no obvious road, and that uncertainty can be uncomfortable when what you want most is solid ground. Try not to mistake uncertainty for failure. Sometimes the path becomes visible only after you stop demanding that the entire route reveal itself at once. Listen closely to what continues to matter to you. Pay attention to what gives you a sense of purpose rather than merely familiarity, and let practicality work alongside desire. You do not have to abandon your need for security in order to change. You simply need to ask whether the security you are protecting still supports the life you genuinely want. And from there, everything begins to become a little clearer. Sometimes the next step does not have to be dramatic. It may simply mean exploring something unfamiliar, taking a different route, or allowing yourself to experience life outside the routines that have made you feel secure. As August 17, 2026 unfolds, remember that patience does not mean standing still. It means giving yourself enough space to recognize which direction actually feels right before you commit your energy to it. You can move carefully without becoming afraid of movement, and you can protect your stability without allowing familiarity to decide your future for you. When it comes to your finances, Taurus, the focus is less on chasing sudden abundance and more on understanding what truly strengthens your foundation. You may notice opportunities that fit your abilities and long-term priorities, particularly when you stop measuring progress only by how quickly results appear. If something you have been working toward has felt stalled, look closely at what needs to be adjusted rather than assuming you have to abandon the entire plan. Your intuition can help you recognize what deserves investment, but your greatest advantage comes from combining that intuition with patience, practical judgment, and a clear understanding of your resources. This is also a good moment to question financial habits that once made you feel secure, but may no longer support the person you are becoming. There could be commitments, expenses, or patterns of giving that quietly drain more from you than you realize, and creating healthier boundaries around those things can make room for something more sustainable. Rather than reaching for every promising possibility, choose the opportunities that respect your long-term needs and allow your resources to grow steadily. The strongest financial energy around you is not about taking the biggest risk. It is about knowing what is worth building, what is worth protecting, and what you are finally ready to stop carrying. That same question follows you into love. You are unlikely to feel comfortable in relationships filled with constant confusion, emotional games, or instability. And there is wisdom in recognizing that peace matters to you. If you are single, meaningful people may still enter your world, but attraction alone does not need to become a decision. Give yourself permission to know someone gradually, because chemistry can be real, while compatibility still needs time to reveal itself. If you are already in a relationship, there is potential for a much steadier and more emotionally grounded connection than you may have experienced before. You and your partner may be learning to understand each other at a deeper level now, especially when you choose to talk about differences instead of quietly storing them away until they become resentment. There is a real difference between keeping the peace and creating peace, because true harmony does not require one person to swallow their feelings just to prevent discomfort. A lasting relationship will always ask for adjustment, compromise, patience, and effort from both people, but those sacrifices should feel shared rather than carried silently by one person. When both of you can acknowledge what hurts, what matters, and what each of you needs, love becomes less about preserving an image of harmony and more about building something that can actually withstand real life. For those who are single, your ability to make people feel comfortable, respected, and understood can naturally draw others toward you. There is something reassuring about the way you can listen, observe, and allow another person to reveal themselves without immediately demanding an answer about where everything is going. Still, you do not have to decide simply because someone is interested, and you do not need to turn every spark into a promise before you know what is underneath it. Let attraction breathe long enough for character, consistency, and intention to become visible, because chemistry can open the door while trust determines whether there is truly somewhere worth going. Two people can feel a powerful connection while their lives are moving at different speeds. And what matters is whether those rhythms can eventually meet without either person having to pressure chase or reshape themselves just to make the relationship work. Your family life can also become an important place of quiet adjustment and emotional growth. Conversations that have been avoided, small gestures of care, or simply making an effort to understand where someone else is coming from may gradually soften patterns that have existed for years. You may begin recognizing that being dependable does not mean becoming responsible for everyone's emotions, reactions, or well-being, and that distinction can change the atmosphere of your home in a meaningful way. You can love someone deeply without solving every problem they bring to the table, and you can offer support without taking ownership of a burden that belongs to them. When you allow other people to carry their own share of the emotional weight, you create more room for genuine closeness, instead of maintaining peace through constant self-sacrifice. There is also something reassuring about seeing the people you love through a different lens. Generational differences, for example, may become easier to understand when you stop treating disagreement as a threat to family harmony and begin seeing it as an opportunity to learn how another person arrived at their perspective. You do not have to agree with everything in order to understand it, and understanding can sometimes soften a tension that years of trying to be right could never resolve. Your own growth can influence the atmosphere around you without requiring you to control everyone else's behavior, because sometimes the strongest change begins with the way you respond. Even ordinary moments together can strengthen a sense of belonging when everyone has enough room to feel heard, respected, and valued. As for your own energy, it feels moderate and gradual rather than extreme. You may not feel completely relaxed, but you're also not overwhelmed by an urgent need to change everything at once, and that middle ground can actually work in your favor. There is wisdom in having enough calm to observe what is happening before reacting, especially when you are trying to make decisions that will affect your sense of security for a long time. Your natural intelligence helps you read situations carefully, notice details other people overlook, and make thoughtful choices, while also reminding you that accepting advice or support does not make you less capable. In fact, sometimes the strongest form of stability is knowing when another person has something valuable to offer, and being secure enough in yourself to receive it without feeling that you have surrendered your independence. The area to watch is hesitation that quietly disguises itself as patience. There is a meaningful difference between waiting because you are gathering enough information and waiting because fear has convinced you that movement itself is dangerous. You may tell yourself that you are simply being careful when somewhere underneath that caution there is a fear of losing what you already know, making the wrong decision, or discovering that the new path requires more of you than expected. If you remain inside that protective space for too long, opportunities can pass simply because you never gave yourself permission to explore them. Take your time, absolutely, but when you recognize that you have already learned what you needed to learn, allow yourself to make one small move, change one pattern, ask one honest question, or open one door rather than waiting for absolute certainty that may never come. For students, this same lesson applies to focus and the way emotional distractions can quietly consume your attention. You may find your mind drifting toward relationships, social media, personal concerns, or whatever currently feels more emotionally interesting than your studies. If someone has caught your attention, for example, it can become surprisingly easy to spend more time wondering what they posted, why they have not replied, or what a particular interaction might mean than concentrating on the work directly in front of you. That does not mean you have to shut your feelings away or pretend those things do not matter. It simply means they cannot be allowed to occupy every corner of your attention. Bring yourself back gently, create a realistic schedule, set reminders or alarms if you need them, and give yourself clear periods for study and clear periods for everything else. There will be time to explore your personal life, your feelings, and your relationships, but protecting your focus now can help you build the stability you will want later. When it comes to compatibility, Pisces may bring a softer emotional connection into your world, with sensitivity and a willingness to understand what lies beneath the surface rather than focusing only on what is being said. That energy can complement your grounded nature by encouraging greater emotional openness without demanding that you abandon your need for steadiness. Capricorn can offer a more practical rhythm, creating a sense of shared responsibility, structure, and attention to detail that may work especially well when you are trying to build something tangible together. With Scorpio, the connection may feel more emotionally intense, drawing you into deeper conversations and encouraging you to look beneath appearances. That combination can also bring energy to ideas or projects that have been sitting quietly in the background, helping you explore them with greater seriousness and commitment. Above all, Taurus, let this period remind you that stability is not the same thing as staying exactly where you are. Real security can evolve as you evolve, and sometimes the safest choice is the one that allows your life to become more honest, spacious, and aligned with what you actually value. You do not have to rush into change, and you do not have to defend every old structure simply because you built it yourself or spent years making it work. Something can have been valuable once and still be ready for adjustment now, just as a tree can remain rooted while continuing to grow in a new direction. What matters is learning to recognize what continues to nourish you, what has become too heavy to carry, and where your next deliberate step can create room for something more genuine to take root and grow.